This is College Football 26 with no power conferences. I went back through the entire college football playoff era from 2014 to 2024, of course not including this year because we don't have the final rankings. I took the final rankings from each of those seasons and made a composite ranking across the 10 years or 11 years and put together all 136 teams in FBS into their ranking. And today what we're doing is balancing out the ratings as much as possible to get an even conference layout with no power conferences and see what happens in College Football 26. Okay, so today we're rocking with Northwestern because I have this sweatshirt, this Sox hat, and I watched Chicago last night. Oh yes, oh yes. So let's look at the conference layout here, get a quick rundown of it. The MAC is centered around Michigan. I'll let you pause on them if you want to. I'll just kind of go through each of them instead of saying them all. The methodology here was to take a team from, there's 10 conferences, take a team from each of the 10 numbers. So 1 through 10, there is a team, 11 through 20, 30 or 21 through 30, 31 through 40, all on the way down to the 121 to 130s, and put those all into a conference that's somewhat geographically based or rivalry based. So for instance, in this one, Notre Dame's the top team. The next team that we had was USC, which made the most sense. So we kind of built around Notre Dame and USC. There's some that don't make exact sense because we had to take from a particular ranking level, but there's, as much as possible, we try to stick around geographic and rivalries to kind of make these interesting conferences. So we get Oklahoma and Texas together, Oklahoma State. We got a lot of Big 12 teams in this one, plus quite a few Mountain West teams. The Big 10's centered around Ohio State and Iowa. This is the weirdest one because it's Penn State and Boise State because, again, Penn State has no rivals and many of the Northeastern teams are not that good. So kind of it's filled with bad Northeastern teams, but that's kind of what you have to do. The independents are the 6 teams outside of the top 130. So most of them are teams that haven't been, like Delaware, Kennesaw State, Missouri State, haven't been in the FBS for very long. And then, of course, there's a couple teams here that just always suck. So that's that. We went through the MAC. Mountain West is centered around Louisiana or LSU, so it's not really the Mountain West, but again, we can't add in conferences or change conference names. The Pac-12 is Oregon, Washington. This one is a pretty good Pac-12 conference. Just happened to be distributed pretty well to get a lot of the Western teams in that one. The SEC is centered around Alabama. And Tennessee is in there. Auburn actually was the second highest ranked because, again, it's for the last 11 years, so Auburn's been good. Sunbelt is a Georgia-Florida conference with a few kind of outliers like Kentucky and SMU, East Carolina a little bit, I guess. And then, we already went through that one centered around Clemson. So those are our conferences. So we're going to do another 3-year simulation. We'll come together at the playoffs and see what it all looks like. We'll rank the best team at the end, the best conference at the end, and kind of our observations from this experience. But let's get it going. Okay, we're at conference championship week here, and my hypothesis is that this should be filled with power conference teams because all the top teams should have been the power conference teams that were filtered in. That's kind of the idea here is, are the G5 teams going to float up to the top or what's going to happen? So we have Duke, Clemson in the ACC, Indiana, USC in the American Championship. So Notre Dame was our number 1 team. They did not make it in. 1-2 Oklahoma, Texas in a Big 12 championship game. These are the kind of things we're looking for. Nebraska, Iowa State. So that's the Ohio State conference. Ohio State is not in the Big 10 championship game. Penn State, Colorado, Michigan, Michigan State, Ole Miss, Mississippi. This is the LSU conference. LSU is not in the conference championship game. Oregon, BYU, Alabama, Liberty. Liberty is the 1 G5 team that we see float up to the top there, which is interesting. There's like Auburn, Tennessee. There's a couple of really good teams in the SEC, and then Georgia, Florida State. So Ohio State, Notre Dame, and LSU are the 3 teams that have conferences centered around them that did not make it into the conference championship game. Let's see what the playoff looks like. There's some interesting matchups here that are going to change playoff seeding. By the way, Northwestern makes it to the Bahamas Bowl after an 8-4 season in the first year, so we're going to keep track of that, see if they can make it to the playoff before the end of the season. Our first CFP bracket here looks like Georgia is taking on Michigan in the first round, Michigan being the conference champion in the MAC. Clemson will take on Ohio State. So although Ohio State didn't make it to their conference championship game, they do make it to the playoff. Baylor is taking on Penn State. Ole Miss will take on Colorado, who won I don't know what conference that was, but they won. Oregon was a conference champion. Oklahoma was a conference champion in a conference centered around them. Texas was not a conference champion, but they make a top 4 seed. And Nebraska was the conference champion, I guess, of the Big Ten. So teams that have conferences centered around them that did not make the playoffs. So Michigan, Georgia, Oregon, Oklahoma, Penn State, Ohio State all had conferences centered around them and did make it. Notre Dame, LSU, and Alabama. Alabama was in their conference championship game. They lost and didn't make the college football playoff. So Notre Dame, LSU, and Alabama are the top teams in their conferences that did not make the college football playoff in the first season. The other 7 teams did. Let's see what happens in the first round. Okay, so 12 seed Georgia kills Michigan 38-14. They'll take on Oregon in the Cotton Bowl. Ohio State gets past Clemson in the 8-9, 31-27. They'll take on Oklahoma in the Sugar Bowl. Penn State takes out Baylor 45-10. They'll take on Texas. And Ole Miss beats conference champion Colorado 45-39. They will take on Nebraska in the Rose Bowl. So we have 1, 2, 3 teams that were not top teams in their conference that have made it to the second round of the first college football playoff. All right, a very good start for Northwestern. They are the Bahamas Bowl winner in our first season. So let's see how far up they can get. Our college football playoff, let's see what happened here. So Georgia absolutely smacks Oregon 41-14. They will take on Ohio State, who also absolutely smacked Oklahoma. That's a matchup in the Peach Bowl, basically a home game for Georgia, and that's 2 teams that have conferences centered around them. Penn State, another team that has a conference centered around them, beats Texas 45-21, and then Ole Miss beats Nebraska, and they're the lone team that doesn't have a conference centered around them. They'll take on Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl, having to go out west multiple different times during this college football playoff run for Ole Miss. So let's see let's see what happens in the national championship game. Okay, so our national championship game is Penn State versus Georgia. Georgia won 44-21 against Ohio State in the Peach Bowl. Penn State won 49-37 against Ole Miss through their West Coast swing. They'll take on each other. So Georgia is from the Sun Belt. Penn State is from Conference USA. So we get 2 teams with conferences centered around them. So 2 top 10 teams over the past 11 seasons and 2 G5 conferences that have made it in. So these were both at-large teams, made it in as G5 conference champions, or made it in as at-large teams, but they were representing a G5 conference, and the winner of this will be the starter of, the best conference title for the video. Okay, so it's Georgia who sneaks past Penn State. In our last video, we finished with Georgia winning a national championship. We start today's video with Georgia winning the national championship. The Sun Belt goes up as the best conference to start, and Georgia starts as the lone national champion after sneaking past Penn State in Miami. Okay, we're back to the conference championship games. Penn State is back in the Conference USA Conference Championship. Oregon is back in the Pac-12 Conference Championship, both with new rivals. LSU made it to the Mountain West Conference Champion unranked, but they finally make it to their conference championship game as the team that the conference is centered around. Oklahoma is actually the team that the Big 12 Conference is centered around. They don't make it to the conference championship game this year. They made it to the playoff last year. They didn't win any games. This is a Texas Tech matchup, which it was 1-2 against Texas, Oklahoma last year. It's 1-3 Texas Tech this year. So Big 12 is definitely in the running for a top conference, even though they didn't win a conference champion or national championship game the first season. Michigan makes it back to the MAC championship against Michigan State this time. Georgia makes it back to the Sun Belt Conference championship game. They won the national championship last season. They will have to win this to get in as their number 17. So we'll see if they can pull it off. Notre Dame makes it to the American Football Championship game. They did not make it last season. They did not make the playoff last season either, so they can see if they can make it in. Alabama does not make the SEC championship game, so unless they make it in as an at-large, they will miss out on 2 straight college football playoffs, even though they are a team that is centered, or the center of a conference. Tennessee is kind of the 3rd team, I think. Auburn's actually 2nd team, so quite a ways down the list in the SEC this season. Clemson makes it back, and then Ohio State makes it to the Big Ten championship game. So there are 2 teams this year that are the center of a conference that did not make their conference championship game. Northwestern's going back to the Bahamas. They went 8-4 yet again this season. They'll take on Maryland in the Bahamas Bowl. So not improving, but not bad for Northwestern to have 2 straight 8-4 seasons. Our CFP bracket for the second season: Ohio State, Michigan in the first round. That is great because I don't think they have played yet unless they played non-conference games. So the winner of that will take on Texas. Michigan was the 5 seed last season and got their ass beat by Georgia in the first round. So we'll see if they can avenge that. Duke makes it in for the first time as an undefeated 9 seed. Interesting. They'll take on probably conference champion Notre Dame, even though they didn't qualify as a conference champion. Oregon and Oklahoma will face off in the first round. So both of those teams are in for their second straight season. Michigan's in for their second straight season. Ohio State's in for their second straight season. Duke and Notre Dame are first-timers. Iowa and Texas A&M are both also first-timers. They'll take on in the first round. The winner of that will take on Texas Tech, who is also a first-timer this season. Penn State looks to avenge their national championship loss last season. Nebraska is in for the second time. They're the number 1 seed. And then Texas is in for the second time as well. So we have, 5 newcomers, 7 teams that are repeating. Georgia will not repeat this season. And it doesn't look like the Sun Belt will repeat this season. It doesn't look like we have anybody from the Sun Belt in here. So there will be a tie in the national best conference. And then the new best team we'll put a name in there as Georgia will not repeat. All right, so yet again, Michigan is the 5 seed, gets their ass beat in the first round. Ohio State 35-14 will take on Texas in the second round in the Cotton Bowl, which is a very big advantage for Texas there. I'm not sure why Texas Tech wouldn't have gotten the Cotton Bowl as they're the higher ranked team. I digress. Notre Dame sneaks past Duke. They'll take on Nebraska in the Orange Bowl in the second round. Oregon sneaks past Oklahoma. They'll take on Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. And then Texas A&M puts it to Iowa. They will take on Texas Tech in a Texas Bowl in the Peach Bowl. All right, Northwestern is back-to-back Bahamas Bowl winners. They're hovering around 9-4 each season. So can they put it together for a final season where they can push towards the top of the MAC and they can make it into the college football playoff? Because Michigan has been consistently winning the MAC for the first 2 seasons. So let's see what can happen there. All right, Texas gets past Ohio State 45-37. There's close games, all one-score games in the second round here. They'll take on Nebraska in an old-school Big 12 matchup. Nebraska got past Notre Dame 46-44. Oregon sneaks past Penn State 21-20. They'll take on Texas Tech 27-24. They beat Texas A&M in the Peach Bowl. So we have 4 former Big 12 teams, 2 current Big 12 teams, a Big 10 team, and a Pac-12 team, all vying for a spot in the national championship game in Vegas. It'll be very interesting to see. Texas Tech and Texas A&M played in the Big 12 championship game, so it could be a rematch. Right now, the Big 12 is kind of in the driver's seat if they win that game for the top team, because they've had 2 teams with a bye in each of the first 2 seasons, and they could very well have at least 1 team in the national championship game this season. Okay, Ducks, don't fail me now. Ducks beat Texas Tech 26-17 in the Sugar Bowl. They will take on Texas, who beat Nebraska 34-22 in the Rose Bowl. They will face off in Las Vegas for the national championship game. Right now, if Texas beats Oregon, the Big 12 is absolutely in the driver's seat, and someone's going to have a great season. Some conference is going to have a great season to dethrone them for next season, and Texas is kind of in the driver's seat for being the best team. If Oregon wins, then we really have a race in the last season to see who will win it. All right, the Ducks win their first national championship in one of our videos, the first national championship in this video, 42-31 over Texas. They're the 2026 national champions. They're going to be the 2025 national champions. But now, the Pac-12 has 1 national championship. The Sun Belt has 1 national championship. The Big 12 is the best conference without a national championship. So we'll see what happens in this final season, and we'll see who can pull off the best team. Oregon and Georgia, of course, are in the running, with Texas in the close third. The other thing we're looking for is, can Northwestern make a run to the top of the MAC in our final season? Okay, first thing, Northwestern has been very disappointing this season. They went 6-6, didn't really do anything, so they fall off after a strong start. Penn State makes it back to the Conference USA Conference Championship game. They'll take on Pitt in an all-Pennsylvania Bowl. Very interesting there. Oregon makes it back to their 3rd straight Pac-12 championship game, so Penn State and Oregon do run their conferences as they're supposed to. LSU makes it back to their 2nd straight Mountain West one. Looks like they have a chance at actually getting in to the conference or to the college football playoff, so that's a step up. Michigan will have to win the MAC to get in to their 3rd straight. Texas and Texas Tech repeat. The Big 12, again, if the Big 12 wins the national championship game this season, they will be the best conference because this looks like it's going to be the third straight season where they're going to have two teams in the top four. And they have their second time they have a 1-2 conference championship game. So the Big 12 is doing something down there. Texas is really doing something if they can pull it off this season. Georgia looks like they might miss yet another college football playoff as they come into the Sun Belt championship game. 12-0 and number 19 in the country. The Sun Belt is strong. They have Florida, Florida State, Miami. Why would they be 12-0 and number 19? Interesting. An all Indiana Bowl for the American Championship game. Indiana, Notre Dame. Indiana has not made it in yet. Notre Dame made it into one of them. For the second straight season, Alabama does not make the SEC Championship game and probably doesn't make the playoff for 3 seasons. So the SEC might be the weakest conference, even though I thought they would be pretty strong with Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee. At least Alabama would just run the conference. Clemson makes it into their third ACC championship game, but might not make it into the playoff. It's going to be a tight race for that final, for the fifth. Not that tight, actually. I think a couple of conferences are not going to make it this year. And then Ohio State is back in the Big Ten championship game. Nebraska was number 1 going in last season. Doesn't look like they're going to make the college football playoff this season. All right, quite a downgrade in the bowl game for Northwestern. They'll go into the game above Sports Bowl. I don't know where that's played. And they'll take on Akron. I got to imagine that's a Northern Bowl, which is definitely not where you want to be ending up at the end of the season in 20-degree weather. Okay, here is our final CFP bracket. So LSU makes it in for the first time. Texas, for the third time, is in a first-round bye. Again, if they can win a national championship game, they are by far the best team. If they can't, they will be the best team that couldn't do it. Penn State is number 3 yet again this season. Indiana makes it in undefeated, so we have 3 undefeated teams in here. Somehow, Georgia most likely went undefeated and didn't make it in. I don't know what college football playoff or college football 26 is doing with that. Texas Tech will take on Notre Dame. This is Texas Tech's second appearance, Notre Dame's second appearance, Ole Miss second appearance, Oregon's third appearance. They will face off, and the winner will take on Texas. If Oregon wins, so we have 4 undefeated teams. If Oregon wins, that game could very well be for the best team between Oregon and Texas. Oklahoma makes it in for the second time. Ohio State makes it in for the second time. Winner will take on Penn State, who made it in for the third time. Texas A&M for the second time. USC for the first time. Winner of that will take on Indiana. USC and Indiana are both American teams, so that would be kind of a second conference championship game, even though USC was not in the conference championship game originally. Okay, so for the first season, we go chalk in the first round. Texas Tech beats Notre Dame 42-31. Oregon beats Ole Miss 40-34. Oklahoma, it's not chalk. Oklahoma upsets Ohio State 46-25, the biggest win and the only upset. And then USC sneaks past Texas A&M. So we get the bowl game, we get the essentially national championship game for the video between Oregon and Texas. Texas Tech also would be in the running here, and Penn State actually also would be in the running if they could win because they made it to a national championship game in the first season. So we have 3 teams, I think, really in the running for the number 1 team. And then the Big 12 has a couple teams here that if they win would clinch. They have 3 teams in the second round. If any of those win, they would clinch it. Penn State could clinch it for, Conference USA. Oregon could clinch it for the Pac-12. If any of those 5 teams win, then we know. Otherwise, we're going to have to do some research. Okay, so it looks like it's going to come down to Texas and Penn State most likely. Texas beats Oregon 38-24. They'll take on LSU, who again is a first-time playoff participant. They beat Texas Tech 49-35. Penn State beats Oklahoma 45-28, and then USC knocks off Indiana 48-45. Very high scoring, very close game. So Texas and Penn State are the ones that are still in the running for the best team overall. Okay, we get the national championship that we were hoping for. Texas beats LSU 49-10 in the Orange Bowl, and Penn State wins 35-23 in the Cotton Bowl over USC. So in New Orleans, we will decide 2 15-0 teams, 1 versus 3. We will decide who is the best team and the best conference based on the winner of this game. Penn State could clinch it for the Conference USA. Texas could clinch it for the Big 12. And then whoever wins will be the best team. Okay, this would not be my prediction, but Penn State is the best team in the video. 2027 national champions. They beat Texas 37-22, as you can see. Texas made it to 2 straight national championship games, could never pull it off. 3 straight first-round byes. They were number 1 in the country in this final season. They could not pull it off to be the best team. They had a very good run, but Penn State makes 2 national championship games. The first season they lose. The third season they win it. They made it to 3 straight college football playoffs. So Penn State and Conference USA are the best in the video.